Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Salam Media News and Views with me, Julie Ali. And we kick off with our first interview with you, Brother Mohamed Kharwa. You are from a South African Muslim network, and I commend you guys and your organization for raising the most relevant of issues, because we're looking at the first story today, and it's really troublesome, where the Limpopo SAPS are calling for shorter trading hours and more enforcement on alcohol over the holiday period. And we do know, sadly, South Africa does have a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And looking at our very own community, we do know that we have a huge issue with substance abuse. Uh, Families are being torn apart, marriages are breaking up, and we need to be putting so much more work regarding these social evils in society. Assalamu alaikum, welcome.
Wa alaikum salam and jazakallah for having me on air this morning.
SAMNET's issue regarding the call by Limpopo SAPS.
So we actually support the call by the Limpopo SAPS. I think the first thing we've got to do is we've got to recognize that alcohol and other addictions, I mean, we've also got to start thinking about addictions like gambling are having a substantial impact socially, financially, on healthcare, on safety, on education. It's all encompassing. It's not just about alcohol only. It's a much broader issue that we've got to talk about. But specifically starting with alcohol, we have for a number of years been supporting the call for, what some bodies like the DG Murray Trust out in Cape Town, based in Cape Town, have been doing some excellent work with regards to things like the alcohol harm reduction strategy, as they call it, or project. And what's the Deputy Police Commissioner in Limpopo has brought to the fore is the fact that a whole range of problems that we have in society, starting from things like gender-based violence in the home, including things like crime, including issues like our road accidents, and then from there going into areas like the issues of healthcare, the issue of sexually transmitted disease by people who are drunk and who have been consuming alcohol because of risky behavior. All of these things are interrelated, and they have one common root contributor to it. And that contributor, not exclusively, but a big contributor to that, is alcoholism. And now we also have to consider, especially as we talk about gender-based violence heading into the 16 days of activism, the factor that gambling is also a factor here. But on the issue of alcoholism and alcohol availability, the Limpopo Provincial Commissioner has said that they would like to introduce much more stringent controls apart from the issues of monitoring. And the idea that we're going to look at people on the road is actually trying to deal with something after the fact. We need to be able to make sure that people who have consumed alcohol, firstly, are not consuming so much that they can't be driving, that they are not taking risky behavior, that they are only accessing where it is supposed to be available and when it's supposed to be available. And thereafter, if they are doing so, then only do we deal with the consequences of those who are not following the rules. We need to change the rules. We need to change the way we do so. So the Limpopo Deputy Commissioner has actually made a call that the province of Limpopo needs to do a number of things. It needs to firstly start enforcement on the rules that it currently has. But also one of the calls that they've suggested is changing the trading hours for alcohol and availability. Now, this may sound, something relatively small, but this is actually based in research that was undertaken in the Western Cape. And in the Western Cape, they've undertaken research in a number of municipalities where they've reduced the trading hours of places that sell alcohol, and they've seen a substantial impact. Now, while the call may be for something that you and I would want much more stringent, it's a good step and a stepping stone and a starting point. And for us, it is the first steps that we need to actually be able to go out there and roll out. We've seen during lockdown the impact of the restrictions on alcohol, where immediately our social organizations, our hospitals, civil society saw a massive change in issues like gender-based violence, hospital admissions, violence, even violent crime are all alcohol is a major contributor to this. So on that basis, we are calling for and supporting for not just the Limpopo province, but other provinces to start taking the lead, to be able to make sure that places are monitored and checked. There isn't any sale to minors, that places are legally allowed to sell alcohol and there's no illegal sales. And then from there, we need to start expanding this conversation. We need to start talking about alcohol advertising. If you have any youth, if you have any children in the home, the first thing that happens is you want to sit down and enjoy sport with them, give them the love of the game, enjoy what our national team, or Bafana or the Springboks are doing. And at every halftime, there are two adverts that persist, that are put forward, that portray alcohol as something to be aspirant, as being something that is critical for us to be able to have fun, when in fact it isn't. And we need to be able to ensure that we don't have alcohol advertising at every single halftime, despite whatever the industry may say. And we've got to also recognize that the alcohol lobby is not a local lobby, it's a global lobby. It's not a local, community-based issue. It's one that works at all levels, national, provincial, and local government, where they are trying to ensure that alcohol is freely available, that they, in fact, make the most money out of it. And we've got to recognize as well that this issue permeates, especially in our most vulnerable communities, to our most vulnerable citizens, the women and children. It permeates into our low-income areas, where shebeens are more than freely available in our communities. And yet, as we talk about the concerns around spaza shops, it seems that nobody is actually raising the concerns about shebeens, which have been longer, which have much more pervasive and negative impacts, which have been found to be selling illegal alcohol products, counterfeit products, unsafe products. We've had issues in communities where, not too long ago, we experienced a number of underage children who died through alcohol poisoning. But where was the call for stricter regulation and enforcement then, when that was a clear and present danger? It exists at this point in time. As we go into the holidays, we need to know where our children are, as you mentioned earlier, but we also need to know that there aren't environments which are actually looking to exploit them, to invite them. The incident a few years ago where children were poisoned and killed at a tavern, I think it was in the Eastern Cape, was actually linked to end of school parties and end of school events. And this was a tavern and a shebeen, or that went out and invited and hosted these young children, as young as, I think, if I remember correctly, 12 or 14. And where's the enforcement? We haven't heard that story. We need to be able to tackle this, and we need to be able to tackle it very seriously, very urgently.
Okay, Mohamed, we need to go for our first ad break, and I'm going to broaden this discussion. I know the focus is on alcohol legislation, but you've touched on a few other issues here, and I want to broaden those discussions. GBV, advertising of alcohol on mainstream media, very especially during sporting events. You touched on the spaza shops as well. I want to talk about that issue, the supposed poisoning of children, or having eaten and bought stuff from spaza shops, and that's when how they got poisoned and they died. And I'm kind of wondering if there isn't a conspiracy involved there. So really, we're going to broaden this discussion. I do hope you have time to discuss this in a little more depth, inshallah, right after the ad break.
Always time for Salam Media.
Jazakallah.
They even get time to study. As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced, with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with Penny Appeal organizations in Gaza.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza.
This house I'm standing on is completely destroyed.
This war should stop.
These 5 houses was full of civilians.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood.
People gathering here, trying to help people.
The whole neighborhood is already destroyed.
This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments.
Hamza Sha'alan, Rafah border, Gaza.
Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, bakkies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. It's exactly 22 after 8 o'clock. This is News and Views on Salam Media. And our first interview is with Mohamed Kharwa. He is with the South African Muslim Network. And of course, SAMNET is calling for stronger alcohol legislation. But as you heard from the interaction between Mohamed and myself, I have said that we're going to be broadening this discussion to encompass other very worrying and troublesome issues that's plaguing not only the country as a whole, but we as Muslims particularly should be very, very concerned, because what we're seeing playing out there with our youth is absolutely frightening. I think our youth and our young adults want to be more westernized than the Westerners themselves, in their habits, in their dressing, in their fine dining, in their becoming bloggers, in putting their entire lives out for the whole world to see. That I find very troublesome indeed. But Mohamed, welcome back. And there's just so much to cover on the show this morning regarding our community. My producer, Nasreen Naidu, who is in her mid-20s, just popped in very quickly during the ad break to tell me, Auntie Julie, there's something new now with young people in high school, and it's called the Pens Down Party after the exams are over. The mind boggles. What are these young people going to be getting up to? Your thoughts, Mohamed?
I actually think, and I think as one of those older people, maybe sometimes we give the young people a little bit of a hard rap and an unfair one. I think that we do have to recognize that they face a level of challenges and influences that weren't prevalent before, and we've got to give them a little bit more in terms of support. We also have some exceptional young people out there who are working very, very hard to make a change. But what we need to do is we need to create the opportunities for them. From a SAMNET perspective, we are looking for young people to be able to expose to issues on activism, like we're talking about in terms of gender-based violence. We have a few young people who have stepped forward and who are really, really trying to make an impact in the community as well. And I think that we need to also, however, be very, very cognizant that this is not, we need to address this holistically. We obviously, as your station, need to address it from the community and the audience that you speak to, but we also need to take care of the people who are our neighbors, the people who are in the neighboring communities to us and the country as a whole, and even going as far as saying we need to actually address this as Africa, because what we can recognize is that the corporate lobbying alcohol and related industries, as government talks about those that they want to put the sin taxes on, those industries are looking for new markets. They know that their markets, especially in the developing world, are shrinking both in size, in terms of the number of people. They are shrinking in terms of the kind of concepts and what's normally happening there, and they need to try and find new markets. I mean, one of the other concepts to actually put out there is dry tripping, and something which is something we should actually encourage and we should promote outside of the Muslim community. Dry tripping is people who take holidays, and on their holidays they choose not to actually consume any alcohol. And this is one of the biggest trends in the Europe and in the developing world, where people are saying, if we're going to pay all this money to travel to Africa, to travel to places around the world, why must we do it purely to go out there and forget the entire trip because we've been drunk through it? Let us go and look for places where there is no alcohol served, which also incorporates people who have problems around alcohol. And this is again an opportunity, an economic opportunity for us as the people who don't consume alcohol, who have strict controls over alcohol in our life, in our lives, and in our value system, to be able to go in there and say, let's encourage more dry tripping into the cities of Cape Town and Durban and Johannesburg in South Africa, and whether it's a game park which is alcohol free. Let us actually get that message out there. If you want to come to a place where you're not exposed to alcohol, and you're a tourist, you're a traveler, look, this is all the places. Look for the halal certificate, and you've got a place that is going to be free of alcohol for yourself, for your family. You're going to have people who are sitting around you who aren't going to be drinking, so your children are not exposed to it. And this is no longer a purely Muslim market. It's no longer a purely it's not a fringe market. It's actually a mainstream a trend that's been picked up on
Mohamed,
people. Yeah.
Right, and so it should be, because I'm sure you also picked up on the report where approximately 7 British youngsters went on a holiday to the Far East. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was in Cambodia.
Thailand.
Was it
Cambodia.
Thailand? There you go. 7 of them died because of alcohol poisoning, methanol poisoning. So what's going on there? And that's really very sad. They go halfway across the world to go and have fun. But what is their concept of fun? To drink themselves senseless? And as you've just indicated, what do they remember of the holiday? They've spent so much money, and what do they remember? Because they've been in a haze all the time. That's the one issue. And yes.
Yeah. So Julie, on exactly. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Carry on.
Also, when we talk about the alcohol problem that is so pervasive in the Western Cape, we need to look at the apartheid, the legacy of apartheid. And we do know back then there was the DOP system in place. And I'm kind of wondering, is it going to take us as South Africa another 30 years to get over that, to eradicate from our memories this whole DOP system issue, and for young people in the Western Cape to think that it's okay? Your thoughts?
So a couple of different things, right? The first one is, you spoke about the binge culture, and in the UK, That's become a major problem of binge drinking, where people just drink themselves into a stupor, and it affects things. And we've also got to recognize that this has a direct economic productivity value. People come into the workplace, they have a problem, they have an addiction, they come into the workplace, they're dangerous, because a person who's driving a Hyster or a vehicle who may have alcohol in their system is not going to be able to make decisions and judgments the same way as a sober person is. So that's a danger in the workplaces. It's poor judgment calls. It's the issue of alcoholism and the feeding of that addiction associated with people who are now predisposed to addictive behaviors, with gambling, which then leads to poor decision making, whether it is theft, criminality, or fraud. All of those things are things which we are seeing in society. Recently, there was a woman who was found guilty of stealing millions of rands to feed a gambling habit that she has in her workplace. So we've got to deal with the alcohol issue in association with the other addictions. We've got to deal with that, with how it has an economic impact. You've mentioned the issue of apartheid and the DOP system. And I think that there are a lot of people, especially young people, who never been exposed to what that is and what that actually does, how that actually relates to the fetal alcohol problem that we've had in South Africa, especially on our farms for many years, with people being basically kind of employed to be to feed their alcoholism. And we've got to actually look back one step earlier. We want to talk about decolonizing our country, decolonizing how we, our mindsets. Well, one of the first things that came when the colonists came to Africa was they came in, and they very often, the stories are, they gave a few shiny beads, they gave alcohol, and they basically then took things that were of real value, and they've taken it away, and that money and that gold and that diamonds and all of those assets that come from our land are now sitting halfway across the world and feeding the economy. So if we want to talk about where does this problem start, I look at this and I say, some of the things that we've identified in our discussions are, the only thing South African about South African breweries is now its name. Because when we talk about monopoly capital and we talk about foreigners coming in and taking over our economy, South African breweries is actually owned by a South American conglomerate. It went out and it grew into the world, and it was supposed to be, the success story of a South African company going out there, but it is now a foreign entity. And when we look at the political and the social activism, and people start talking about what's wrong with our banking system and what's wrong with the corporate machine that comes out there, which sometimes is good and sometimes is bad, like any other environment, we have to actually start saying, wait, hold on, why is it that we're not having this conversation about the dominant player in our country in the field of alcohol, and the people who are making, if I remember correctly, there's something like about 67 billion rands. This market is worth something like 67 or 670, I can't remember offhand, but you're looking at multiples and multiples of billions of rands, and it basically is feeding a system that is adding no social value. Talking about binge drinking and our youth, Iceland has a very good case study. They had a huge problem with youth alcoholism, drinking. How do they actually deal with youth who are left alone to their own devices? And they started a program. It doesn't happen in 1 week or 1 year or one campaign. They started a concerted program over decades that started off with things like making sure that the community is responsible for the children and the youth, making sure that they have alternate spaces for them to actually do things, making sure that healthy living and choices is brought into their daily life, their schooling, all of those things. We've got to start talking about, why is it that the current Bella Bill, for all the things that we are critical about it, and there are things that are beneficial in it, but one of the things that we're not talking about is that the new bill is actually saying that alcohol should be allowed in schools. Now, this was a red line in the previous bill. It actually was very distinct that we cannot have alcohol in an educational environment where the people who go there are not of legal drinking age. And yet the Bella Bill now wants to try and find a backdoor entry on the basis of, we want to host parents and we want to host events.
Well,
No, we don't need
Mohammed,
alcohol in those.
Mohammed, that's a clear indication of the fact that government's been captured. Let's not kid ourselves. Government's been captured, media's been captured, etc. Just to go back one step, you talk about that Icelandic study, and what came to mind immediately is the African proverb. And why don't we exercise it, and why we as a community and all of South Africa or all of Africa not go back to our roots and recognize that it takes a village. It takes a village to raise one child. And I go back to my opening remarks of the interview this morning, where I said, sadly for us as a community, we want to be more Western than Western society itself. And I think we need to do some deep introspection, and we need to start self-correcting. Regarding liquor and regarding substance abuse, I think I also mentioned at the start of the show that our community has a huge problem with substance abuse. We need to ask ourselves why. I think going way, way back, our youth was smart. They realize that if you consume alcohol, it's a dead giveaway. You can pick it up because it reeks, the smell, etc., etc., etc. And they kind of thought that perhaps illegal drugs won't give it away because there's no smell or anything to pick up, apart from weed, of course. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why a lot of our youth rather, veer towards illegal drug use or abuse rather than consuming of alcohol. But you're right in saying that, we're not confining it to the Muslim community. We need to do big picture thinking because we need to think of our neighbors as well. So, we're sitting with a huge problem.
Julie, there's a key problem that we tend to have, especially in terms of the way that we address things. I think we're very, very focused on the tangibles and on the heres and nows. And we need to start focusing on things that come through at root cause. So from a SAMNET perspective, one of the calls we made earlier this year is that for every 100 Rand or every 100 Rand that we want to contribute towards a cause, whether it is the fact that we are dealing with gender-based violence and we want to put together facilities to be able to help women who are the victims of gender-based violence, or children who are who are affected by alcoholism and violence in the home, we need to say, okay, we need to actually take 5 rands of that 100 rand, so it's 5% or even 1%, and take that and redirect it into projects at grassroots or root cause level. We need to be able to take that and then go and find the political voices that are aligned to what we're talking about across the community or across South African society. It's not an issue that is uniquely being addressed by the Muslim community. It's a problem whether it is other faith-based groups, whether it's churches, whether it is our Hindu community, wherever it may be in society, traditional religious groups, they all recognize the problem. What we need to do is we need to actually coordinate, and we need to be able to go to them and say, let's all go together and get the legislation changed.
Absolutely.
Let's all go together and see who are those politicians who are not actually talking to the benefit of their communities, and say, we don't want them. Talk to our political parties and say to them, there's a red line now, and you've got to step up. And this is not just about any, economic arguments. The most common one made is, oh, you know what are we going to lose? Nobody's talking about what we're going to gain. We've got to actually talk to the fact that if we reduce alcohol access and we reduce alcohol availability and addiction, and we reduce that just on healthcare alone, we will have massive savings, and we can then take all of those resources, the result of alcohol abuse and drugs and crime that is all associated with that is the stabbings and the shootings that hospitals are spending a lot of time, resources, energy, facilities, medication, space dealing with when they need to be dealing with issues of things which we need to address around infant mortality, around childcare, around cancer. We don't have those facilities because a big chunk of what we're spending on is dealing with the here and now in a casualty ward, rather than trying to solve the health problems so people don't end up in hospital in the first place. So if we want to address this, we need to start targeting those.
I also need to bring up two very important issues related to what we're talking about this morning. I alluded to, you and I both alluded to it a little earlier on. I'd just like you to expand a little more, because I think in about another 5 minutes or so, we're going to have to wrap up. The South Africa is known for one of the highest accident rates in the world, road accidents. That too is directly related to alcohol and substance abuse. The 16 days of no violence against women and children started yesterday, it kicked off yesterday. Every year we have these campaigns, and I kind of wonder, are we making a difference? But let's also not kid ourselves that the number of divorces we are seeing in South Africa, in our own communities as well, is directly related to GBV issues. Where does that all stem from? Directly to either alcoholism or substance abuse. Your thoughts?
And don't forget gambling. And don't forget gambling, Julie. That's now become a massive industry. It is easily available through our cell phones, online. It's no longer what used to happen, where somebody had to get into a car and drive somewhere to be able to go and gamble. It's now done, whether it is, in a person's workplace, whether it is in their home, wherever they may be, the gambling has come to them. And we've seen problems in families where, it's not an alcohol problem, it's not a drug problem, it's just the impact of that complete financial breakdown in the family because of an addiction of gambling. And it's leading to, whether it's fraud in the workplace, theft in the workplace, or people who just take all of their life investment in building up a business, a family business, and that actually coming down and turning into an issue of gambling. So we're covering a very, very broad range. I think, I don't know whether this morning when you thought you were going to talk to me, you were just going to stick to one area, but I think
no, not at all.
SAMNET,
I told you,
we never just focus on one area.
Yep. I told you right from the outset, it's going to be a very broad discussion touching all of the different addictions. And you're so right. Way back in the day, can I just make this one comment, and then I'll hand over to you? Way back in the day, if you remember, and I'm talking possibly 40, 50 years ago, when Sin City in Western Province, Sun City, that is opened. I mean, the cases of the disruption and the breakdown of families in our very own community was absolutely rampant. And now it's probably even worse, gambling, because you don't have to drive after miles and miles. Back in the day, I think it was the Wild Coast in your part of the world. So you don't have to drive out for miles. You've got a handheld device, and supposedly the world is at your fingertips, or so you believe. But you're so ensnared into this addiction that you're so fired up, and you think that you're going to win, and you're going to overcome.
So Julie, to come back to the original discussion point, I think one of the things that we've been trying to raise and highlight related to both the alcohol issue and the gender-based violence issue is the statistics, and this is something we've got to start looking at a lot more. And we as SAMNET are currently engaged with some of our ulama bodies to be able to start talking about enlightening and educating how we make decisions based on data. And the statistics are there. So one of the statistics that recently came out was that 60% of women who are killed in South Africa are killed by their intimate partners. And when you account for people who are killed by family members and people they know, that actually goes up to 90%. So the 10% are actually affected by the random person who doesn't know them. It's 90%, it's people who they actually are interacting with. When we take the intimate partner a situation, we've got to then look at gender-based violence as a whole. Well, it's over 60% of that actually happens in the home. So when we want to now say, if we're going to look at where the root cause is and where the data is, well, let's start looking at gender-based violence in the home. And if we're looking at gender-based violence in the home, we're going to deal with our femicide problem. If we then talk to the gender-based violence in the home, it's something like 60% or more of that is related to addiction to alcohol. And this is again statistics from the Medical Research Council of South Africa, the Human Rights Council, and various universities and institutions in South Africa as well. We need to invest in research so that we can reinforce our case and prove our issues. But then we need to take that research and we've now got to say, well, then let's deal with alcohol in the home. Well, what happens with the alcohol in the home? Well, alcohol and alcoholism and how that leads to gender-based violence is very, very often related to the trading hours of alcohol, which is what the police commissioner in Limpopo, as we originally started our conversation with, raised, is that when the studies have been done in the Western Cape, etc.,
I'm going to interrupt, Mark. I'm going to interrupt you there, Mohamed. If you're going, I hope and pray you can indulge me with a few minutes more, if you don't mind. But we do need to go for an ad break, and when we come back, I'll allow you to wrap up on this issue. And then I want to raise something that's really very dark and sordid, which we don't want to address, but it's a huge reality in lots of communities. But all of that and more right after the ad break.
Sure.
Can I take it for the full hour?
Poverty. For those who are a meal away from starvation, a food parcel means an entire family can eat this Ramadan. That's the power of food. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
You South African, of course. You anxious about the future. We've got you covered. Build on your wealth portfolio with Randry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange. Visit us at 151 Stephen Dlamini Road, Musgrave, Durban, or call us on 031-202-4700 for more information. Randry Jewelers Gold Coin Exchange, your passport to gold investment.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to guide you through the complex nature of financial and investment planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Our brothers and sisters in Palestine are enduring unimaginable hardships. Ashraful Aid teams are on the ground, delivering crucial aid to those in need. But we can't do it alone. Palestine is suffering and they need your help. Your support can make a world of difference. Visit www.ashrafulaid.org today and donate to bring hope, relief, and healing to those who are in need.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Welcome back, and as fascinating as this discussion is with Mohamed Kharwa from SAMNET, I'm going to have to end it there, unfortunately, because I'm way over time. Our next guest is standing by. Mohamed, we will catch up, inshallah, and have a more in-depth discussion. I'm so sorry to cut off like that. Shukran very much for your insights, your time. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and we will talk again. Keep us in your du'as and go well.
Shukran for the opportunity. Shukran for the
Assalamu
opportunity.
alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
It is exactly 8:49 a.m. News and views moving along. And the next Mohammed on the show this morning is you, Mohammed Zaid Rogers. You are from Righteous Hands Foundation, and you are demanding, or your foundation is demanding, action against the US veto power and support for global peace, Righteous Hands. Well, of course, that's your organization. Assalamu alaikum, welcome. Nice to have you on the show.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.